Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 147, Healing Your Family Legacy, Part 3. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee. Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy. I hope that this whole process that I'll be talking about for the weeks to come will help you understand and recognize your part, other people's part in your own legacy, not just so that you can, feel like you've got some self-esteem, but also because you don't want the negative, not negative, but harmful parts of your family legacy to go on to the next generation. Otherwise, why would you bother? Why would you bother? I know a lot of people do bother. I've spent 50 years as a therapist and doing my legacy workshops, and people reading my book about this. I know that people bother with it. And they don't bother with it until they are in distress as an adult. It's like you can't deal with your childhood trauma when you're a child. I mean, you can be saved from it. You can be rescued from it. You can be, helped in the situation. But the impact of that is going to come out in your adult life unless you've received some seriously good treatment from somebody that knows how to work with kids. And it doesn't often occur that way. So, whatever happens, then you're looking at your adult life saying, this isn't working for me. And when I say this isn't working for me, I'm talking about, it's like, am I in a relationship that I feel valued in? Do I value other people? Am I a good parent? Do my children seem to be thriving because I'm in their lives? How about my job? Am I going to my job and thinking, I like being a productive member of society? Or am I going to my job trying to figure out how I can get out of there soon enough so I can go play somewhere? I mean, there are all kind of ways that this dysfunction occurs. And it's like, first time around was one thing. The second time around, since doing this, I've noticed other ways that people avoid dealing with their adult lives. And sometimes it's like, I don't like being an adult. It's too hard. If it's too hard, then you probably have childhood trauma. And before you come blasting back saying, well, I was not abused, I was not neglected, they were there all the time, that's probably why it's too hard. You have to go through and learn how to solve problems as a child and not be rescued. I mean, if you're being physically abused, sexually abused, there are some ways, some situations and scenarios where children need to be rescued. But the day-to-day life of being a child can be hard. It's like, no, you can't have that candy right now. Oh, no, I'll probably die without it. Or, no, you can't go to your friend's house. You have to do your homework. Or, no, you don't get a phone until you're 13. Or, it's like, these are difficult situations. And when parents take the time and energy and effort to try to help you as a child through these kinds of difficult situations, you become a good problem solver. And you're not threatened by, other people's success. You don't feel like you have to be in competition with the world in order to be good enough. Okay? So there are all kinds of ways that children are abused. And I've noticed that physical abuse is not as prevalent as it was, say, when I was a child. Because when I was a child, that's how everybody did it. It's just some children grew up in families where it was just over the top brutal. It's never okay. Let me just be real clear on that. But I said before that, you grow up and, what shapes you as an adult is your family, your religion, your culture. And in my culture growing up, it was like people spank their kids. Spanking is not good for kids. All it does is it makes them be afraid of whoever it is that's spanking them. And when the parent's trying to, make a point or, make sure you understand and you're just getting discipline, you have so not noticed what they're saying. If you've been, spanked and spanked and spanked every single day, it's like the things that they quote are, quote, air quotes. I put that discipline in air quotes because hitting children is not discipline. It's abuse. And, unless you're trying to get, unless somebody as a child is doing something that's going to be harmful to their health, and I don't mean like, their, emotional health. I'm talking about their physical health, that they might become ill or injured or dead. And then one swat across the butt, a covered butt, and telling them, here, don't do that, here, do this, and then show them what to do instead. If that happens once or two times in your life, when you were in that situation, you probably remember it, and it probably doesn't feel abusive. It probably doesn't feel like you're a bad person. If that happened to you in your life because you ran into the street when you were 4, because you still, most 3 or 4-year-olds don't quite get that, how dangerous it is. And your parent grabbed you and swatted you across your covered butt in the moment and said, always, when you are crossing the street, make sure you're holding a grown-up's hand. That's all they need. It's like they're not going to understand when you say, it is so dangerous. They don't get that. They don't get what dangerous is. If you're a functional adult parent, you're doing that to get their undivided attention. And you're telling them what to do. And that is the only time I know of that I can think of. And, there might be some professionals that think even that would be abusive, and that's fine. I don't, but they do. Any other time, absolutely abusive. There's no question about it. And if you were physically abused as a child, you might not even remember what it was that was happening that created that. In fact, I would say most people don't. They might, and people's memories are funny. They might remember something as a child, because remember, your memories are age dependent. That means that if something happened to you at age 3 or age 5 or age 16, your memory that you have of that is that age. And you might even talk about it with the same kind of words and concepts that you had at the time. So, if you're 3, you only can remember what your intelligence and cognizant cognizant abilities are capable of. And so I will give you an example of that. It's an obvious one, but you can certainly see how you could, put this across the line. So a young woman came to me, and I won't go into her whole story because it's irrelevant, but basically she said to me that her grandfather lived with them, and at night he would come in to her bedroom when he was supposed to be saying goodnight to her, and she said to me, this is like an educated, intelligent woman now saying to me, well, then he would put his nose in my mouth. Okay, there's a new one. I hadn't ever heard that one before, but let's explore that. And then I just asked the question, do you really think it was his nose? And she thought about that, thought about the crib she was in and how it would happen. And she just looked at me just wide-eyed and said, it wasn't his nose. No. But you see, memories are age dependent. She was 3. She only, it's like 2 or 3, maybe 2.5, but something like that. It's like, here's your nose, and here's your eyes, and here's your ears, and here's your mouth. And, it's like you're starting to identify different parts of your body. And you certainly don't identify parents or grandparents' parts of their bodies that you can't see. And you shouldn't be seeing them by then. You see, so in her world, when she grew up, and she was a little older than me, so, I don't even know if she's alive anymore, but but when we grew up, we did not have accurate words for our bodies. Okay? So, penis was a pee-pee. And so if she would have said, well, he put his pee-pee in my mouth, then I would know what she was talking about, and she would know. But she'd be really baffled by saying it that way because memories are age dependent. They come out the same way they went in. And if you don't have, if you're not old enough to have a context that makes any sense, then when you're remembering how your life was, you might be confused at some of the things that come up for you. And like I said, there might have been times when you actually remember getting physically abused or getting left behind. And because you don't have a conceptual framework for, your emotional and psychological development at that time, you might not be able to say what it was that was going on. So our memories are funny. We take what we know in the situation, and sometimes we make up a story about it, but most of the time, whatever the story is going to match the emotional energy. And then I go back to saying, and that's why we don't include those people in our recovery from this. We don't talk to them. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is what it was for you. That's what's relevant. And if continuing to say that it was his pee-pee is like part of your development, okay, then it was. And I'll know at some point when you've been able to take that from your childhood trauma and move it into another place in your life, like your adult life, you'll say something different than that, okay? You'll say, he sexually abused me. Because you'll know. Your adult knows what that is. But it takes some time to move it, especially emotionally, from point A to point B or Z. It can be quite a process. But let me remind you that you already went through it. You've already gone through You've lived through what happened to you as a child. You lived through it. It's not going to hurt you. You might have some pain, okay, because you might be looking at some things that were painful that you quickly, had a defense mechanism thrown in the way so that you could make it through your life. But you've already been through it. It's not going to hurt you anymore. And the pain and the sadness and the fear or whatever else comes up was just all those emotions that you've been all those years just trying to keep below the surface. And how do people do that? We'll talk about some of those defense mechanisms, some of the obvious ones. Well, we'd say we tried to drink it down, tried to act it out with sex or something else, tried to gamble about it, tried to work about it, tried to have as many boyfriends or girlfriends that you could possibly have about it, tried to eat about it, tried to starve yourself about it. And there are so many things that people do to deal with those traumas. And that also starts at a very young age. And so you might say, well, I don't remember anybody abusing me, but I've had an eating disorder all my life. Well, if you've had an eating disorder all your life, there's childhood trauma. That's all there is to it. It doesn't come from out of nowhere. And yes, people's brains, it's like Ozempic has found a way, and those medications have found a way to help you lose weight. But it doesn't help you find out what happened to that part of your brain that's not working anymore that says you've had enough. Because you were born with that ability. Anybody ever tried to feed a baby that's had enough? Tried to do that lately? Well, that's all I can say to you. If you tried to do that lately, that looks really nice on your shirt or your blouse because they're going to spit it right back at you. We're born, there's a part of our brain that says, I'm full, I don't want any more. And if you try and make a child eat something and they're full, they can outlast you. You'll sit there until you eat that. Well, they can outlast you. They can put their little heads on the table and go to sleep while you're sitting there watching them. They'll go to sleep and sleep the whole night through, and their neck they won't have to go to a chiropractor. You will. So, I'm just saying, every dysfunction, depression, all those mental illnesses, we now know there is empirical evidence that all mental health diagnoses can be traced right back to childhood trauma. Now, if you are born with a brain defect, something didn't get hooked up right in your head or something, that might be a different story. But most is not. It's about childhood trauma. And so if you have any of these things, if you are on your second or third relationship and you don't know why or what's going on, what's wrong with all those people, you might want to look at yourself and what your childhood trauma was. If you just focus on what that was, it will become clearer to you about what those things in your adult life that don't work for you, what happened and how it relates. But you have to know what it was and what happened to you before you can move into, okay, I'm going to change this. You might, people try and change their behaviors all the time, and then they find themselves back to where they were. And they go, I've done all this. I know all this. And that might be true. But unless you've actually done this serious work and really, courageously looked at your childhood in a different way than you're probably used to, you probably, that legacy that you're acting out now is just going to continue. And like I said, it's not going to hurt you now. I will say that while you're going through this, you might not want to be around those people very much. That's fine. You're an adult. You can decide whether or not you want to be around them anyway. You don't have to have an excuse. You don't have to have a rationalization or a justification. You just say no. It's a complete sentence. But when you're going through this, most of the time people don't want to hang out with the people that abuse them. Even if you could say, well, that they were just doing what was done to them. I get that. I understand that. I'm not here to judge them. This is not a blame game. And I'm not judging them. I'm saying that if you're listening to me right now, you probably have some childhood trauma that you need to work out. And, it doesn't, it's like there's some basic, okay, so childhood trauma, I'm looking at it, but mine wasn't as bad. We're not comparing ourselves to other people's trauma. We're not blaming. It's not a blame game. We're only keeping it from age 0 to 17. We're not talking about what that person did to me as an adult. I can't say this enough. 0 to 17. Sometimes maybe before 0. I mean, there might have been some kind of trauma going on when you were still in the womb. But that we're talking about childhood now, not about your adult life. You will, as you go through this, you will discover that, oh, now I know why I do X, Y, or Z. Okay. That part of your adult life, you'll probably be able to see that. Some of you might say, well, I'm going through this and I'm looking at this, but, your inside voice might say, well, I'll just do better. I don't want to look at that anymore. I don't really want to accommodate that. Like I know a woman, I haven't seen her in a long, long time. Obviously, somebody that I probably wouldn't sustain long-term friendship with. But that's what her opinion was. Okay, I know about that, but I'm not, I'm fine now. And she spent so much time trying to be perfect. And she was a genius. She said she's not a genius. But, well, I'm a genius. And I figure things out. And then I just stop. Does that feel like somebody you want to hang out with? That is a dysfunction. And it comes from, well, I'll just get perfect and then it'll be okay. That's what kids think. So it doesn't work. You probably are going to be lonely if that's how you dealt with your childhood trauma. So we're not, like I said, we're not judging. We're not going to court. We're not suing anybody. 0 to 17. Don't compare yourself. Don't run home and decide you're going to, hold those people accountable. Don't talk to your siblings about it. It's like, I say this every time I had a legacy workshop, which I haven't had in a while because, well, I'm semi-retired. But I'd say, do not share this good news with your family. It will blow up in your face. It always does. And somebody always did. And then they'd either email me or call, or maybe they're still in therapy with me. God, I tried to tell my sister about this, And I thought, wow, she'll really like to know this because maybe now she'll deal with her eating disorder. Oh, no. Boy, talk about blowing up in your face. There you go again. You're trying to blame mom and dad for everything, or, Mrs. So-and-so down the street for everything. And I was like, here this woman thought she was doing a brave and courageous thing by doing this. And she was in her own life. Your family will not appreciate this at all. So keep the good news to yourself. That's the best way to manage it. And you know what? When you start feeling different, it's going to impact your behavior. You will be a different person, probably more the person you wanted to be. And your family members might ask you, like your siblings might say, what have you done differently? And then you can just say, well, I read this book. It's called Iron Legacy, Adult Childhood Trauma and Adult Transformation. I worked with this therapist who has this podcast, and that's what I did. And then they might, or they might not. But you'll have good boundaries by then. Okay. Well, when we meet again, we're going to talk about what all of that is. What is childhood trauma, and how does it affect children specifically? So, next time we meet, have your pencils and papers ready.
Thank you for listening to Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2023, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.